Hello, Assembly. Hi.
Hello. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, sir. Welcome to today's program. Uh, sir, we are going to start today's program. First of all, a very good evening to all the participants and the respected dignitaries who are present over here. On behalf of Department of Political Science and History, Bidhan Chandra College, Rishra, I welcome you all to this international webinar on the history of Indo-Bangladesh relations, past, present, and future. Today we have got with us our Vice Principal, Dr. Ramesh Kaur. He will be presenting the welcome address. We have got among us Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj. He is the Professor, Center for South Asian Studies, School of International Studies, JNU, New Delhi. And we have got Professor A.M. Ashraf Ali, Professor, Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. I welcome both the resource persons for today's program. Without wasting any time, I will kindly request our Vice Principal, Dr. Ramesh Kaur, to deliver the welcome address. And we have also in today's program, the chief guest of today's program is Dr. Sudipta Roy. He is the Honorable MLA and President, governing body of Bidhan Chandra College, Rishra. Maybe if he gets time, he will join us some time afterwards. I would now kindly request our Vice Principal, Dr. Ramesh Kaur, to welcome all the dignitaries and the participants formally. So, sir, it is now over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Ravu. Good afternoon, everyone. Respected distinguished research person, honorable dignitaries, dear colleague, research scholars, coordinator of IQAC, today webinar organizing committee secretary and joint secretary and affectionate students. It is really a great pleasure and privilege to be present in the international webinar organized by the Department of History, Political Science in collaboration with IQAC. Being the head of the institute, I must congratulate the teachers of the Department of Political Science and History, especially Professor Deptanu Maji and Dr. Samindamon Biswas. They have taken initiative to organize the international webinar. First of all, I, on behalf of Institute, must welcome the distinguished research persons, Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj, Professor Center for South Asian Studies, School of International Studies, JNU, New Delhi, and Professor M. Ashraf Ali, Professor of Department of International Relations, University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. I would be immensely grateful as they have responded to our invitation despite their busy schedule. I convey my best wishes to our governing body president and all governing body members for moral support to organize the international webinar. I do hope that our participant would reap a sound harvest from the day's discussion. I firmly believe that this kind of webinar will be interesting and interactive one. The survey of the day speech and reciprocal discussion, I do hope, would further illumine the minds of the teachers and taught. I wish a warm success of the day's webinar. Once again, thank you all. Namaskar.
Uh, Thank you, sir, for your welcome address. Now I will request Dr. Sanjay Bharadwaj to actually he is also the chairperson of this session, so he will be chairing this session, as well as he will be over here as a speaker also. So now I will request sir to you to chair this session, and I think Professor A.M. Ashraf Ali, he will be the first speaker of today's discussion. So it's over to Sanjay sir now. Sir, you are free to deliberate now. Sir, are you getting me? Hello? 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 Sanjay sir, are you getting me? Hello?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
No, there was some problem with the mic of my.
Okay, sir. Sir, it's now
So
over to you. Yeah.
I could not listen what exactly you said in between because I little bit I disconnected myself.
Okay.
So thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Devan to Maji for this wonderful opportunity to be part of this international webinar organized by Bidhan Chandra College. I'm highly thankful to the principal of this college, Dr. Ramesh Kaur, for sending his kind invitation to deliver my lecture as well as to chair the session. I'm also thankful to the president president of this college, Dr. Sudipta Rao. He's a member of Legislative Assembly also for being with us in this webinar. I'm also very happy and I'm glad to have my friend from Bangladesh, Dr. A.M. Ashraf Ali. He's from Department of International Relations, Dhaka University. That Department of International Relations, Dhaka University, is very close to me. I'm frequent visitor of IR department. I have all the friends, including Professor Ashraf Ali, and I'm so happy to have him with us. Today we are going to discuss about India Bangladesh relations, and that's very important, very relevant topic today, keeping India's neighborhood policy or India's neighborhood first policy into mind, where India claims that Bangladesh is the closest friend of India today in South Asia, and of course we are having very close political, economic, and strategic understanding in recent past, that the two countries are developing together. Two countries are protecting each other's border with a positive note. So, of course, that if you really see the records of the two countries in last more than one decade, we do find that this high level or apex level bilateral visits are taking place. There are different training programs are taking place, and we are doing good progress on areas of economy or trade, connectivity, and other political and bilateral and political relations. Of course, there are always the political issues always dominates the South Asian discourse. But the most important thing, the two countries had come out to fight against terrorism and fundamentalism that was hampering, that was creating an obstacle or creating problem to the peace and prosperity of South Asian countries. The two countries had joined hand, and I think we're partially successful to control the issue of terrorism in last 1 decade. So I would not speak first. I would request my friend Professor Dr. ASM Ali Ashraf to speak and deliver his lecture, and then I would come with my submissions if I have anything that my friend would not cover and I have. So Dr. Ashraf Ali, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. So you, Doctor, you may start, please.
Very good. Right. Thank you so much. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to interact with the Bidhan Chandra College. I'm quite grateful to the organizers and also the Honorable Vice Principal, Dr. Ramesh Kaur. Special thanks to Mr. Dr. Samindro and Mr. Deptanu for nicely coordinating this event. And I'm quite humbled by the invitation. And I'll try to make sure that the slides that I'm going to show in a few minutes will capture the essence of the theme of this webinar, that the history of Bangladesh-India relations. I'm going to show my slides and give me a few seconds. Okay. Is the slide visible to you?
No, sir, it is not yet visible.
Not yet, okay. Do you see it now?
Yes, sir. Now, yeah, sir. Now it has appeared. Yeah.
All right. So give me a few seconds, please. I'm going to. Okay. All right. Do you see it now? Is it good?
Yes, sir. It is good. It is visible.
Excellent.
Yeah.
As you can see, the title that I chose for my presentation is Beyond Hilsha and Onion Diplomacy: Historical Trends in Bangladesh-India Relations. What I mean is that very recently you must have seen that in the media in both countries, in Bangladesh and India, there are talks about how Bangladesh is trying to send nearly 1,500 tons of hilsha as a goodwill gesture to the West Bengal people ahead of the Durga Puja, as a goodwill gesture, and how the ban on the export of the onions from the Indian government side has created some kind of tensions, very low level, because price stability in the local market in Bangladesh also is seriously affected. So I'm going to argue in this paper that beyond these temporary hiccups, the long-standing relations between Bangladesh and India is very warm. And as our colleague Dr. Chandra has said, that over the last decade there have been significant progress in political, strategic, and counterterrorism cooperation. I'm going to support this hypothesis, and this is the outline that I'll be following throughout my presentation. I'll talk about first of all, I'll focus on the historical journey, looking at the, let's say, from 1971 to 2009. So, which means almost 40 years of history, and show that the first 40 years is sharply different from the next 10 years. And so what I argue here is that the last decade has been significant in terms of a huge transformation in Bangladesh-India relations, and that I consider to be an empirical puzzle. And my job would be unlocking the puzzle. What I mean by unlocking the puzzle is to provide a theoretical model to explain and how Bangladesh foreign policy has progressed in the last 10 years to explain these transformational relations with India. I'll be following the new classical realist theory of IR, which basically argues that external variables and domestic variables interact to shape the foreign policy decision process and outcomes for a country. The data that I use in my presentation are mostly primary and secondary, and I use both qualitative and quantitative data. Basically, I show that the new classical realist model is very relevant in understanding bilateral relations between any two countries, especially Bangladesh and India. And I conclude with some note on future, trends in the two countries' relations. The first question that we need to tackle is why should we care about Bangladesh-India relations, and why does it matter? Or why does it matter, and why is it an interesting topic? And the answer is very clear. At least 4 different reasons are there. First of all, is geography. I mean, think about Bangladesh, India share the 5th largest international boundaries, land boundaries in the world, and that is a phenomenal event. And also, more than half of Bangladesh's international border actually is with the northeastern part of India, and for many years the Indian northeast has remained quite absent in Bangladesh foreign policy discourse. So in the presentation, we will try to understand that how there is a new thrust in Bangladesh foreign policy that focuses on the Indian northeast. So without compromising relations with the Indian West, Indian East is also becoming a priority area for Bangladesh foreign policy, and there is a long history of this relation starting from centuries of relations, cross-cultural exchanges, visits. Even today, I mean, tourism remains one of the major modalities for exchanges between people. We'll talk about how also the regional geopolitics makes this case of Bangladesh-India bilateral relations a very interesting topic. I mean, look at what's happening around the world and in the region, the Rohingya refugee flow in Myanmar, and Bangladesh is now managing nearly a million Rohingya refugees in the country, and the foreign policy of India and China towards the Myanmar state is very, very significant for Bangladesh. Also, there have been significant exchanges between Indian and Chinese border forces, and there are lots of debates about what should be the position of Bangladesh in these Sino-Indian border clashes. These are interesting events, and so the main argument that I'm trying to propose here is that this bilateral relations is not only about the two countries; it has lots of implications for the South Asian region and also some parts of Southeast Asia. Now, what I said a few minutes ago is that the Hilsha and the onion diplomacy. What I mean by this is that, let's say, there's a typo here. Let me just fix it. Do you see the slides again? I'm sorry for the interruption.
Yes, sir.
Nice. There is a typo on the second timeline. Actually, what I meant is that in September 2020, this month, a few days ago, the government of Bangladesh has decided that it is going to export nearly 1,500 tons of Hilsha, and that is a large number. I mean, in terms of the fact that prior to the ban of the Hilsha export, the annual export was of anywhere between 5,000 tons to 8,000 tons. And this is projected in the media as a from the volume of Hilsha export in 2019. Now what's also interesting is that this the ban on the formal trade, never is never successful, because informal traders can always exploit the porous borders. So there has been a lot of smuggling of the hilsa from the Bangladesh side to the Indian side, and media reports of the seizure of the hilsa by the Border Security Force of India, clearly illustrates this. Now, what is also interesting and equally important is that because of the heavy rains and the floods, the Indian government has been forced to ban the export of the onions. But what caused the some kind of hiccups in the bilateral relations between the two countries, as I said before, is that it was a sudden ban that came from the Ministry of Commerce of India. And media reports also clearly reveal that the Indian Ministry of External Affairs is a bit embarrassed because the ban also applies to the trucks which finished all the formalities for the export of the onions from the Indian side to the Bangladesh side. So effectively, what happened is that Bangladesh-bound trucks full of onions were now stopped at the border areas. And the two governments are now trying to find a good solution for the at least clearance of those trucks so that they can come to Bangladesh. What I mean is that many people even don't feel comfortable in discussing Bangladesh-India relations, saying that it's very sensitive because even small steps get lots of tensions and misunderstanding, miscalculations, mistrust and distrust. What I'm going to argue in a few minutes is that beyond these diplomatic hiccups, relations between two countries are relatively very normal, very stable, and this normalcy and stability I'm referring has been achieved over the last 10 years. That's very significant. So our task here would be understanding, what are those areas of transformation or relationship between Bangladesh and India for the last 10 years, and despite all the tensions, media, heights. Relations are I would say that much better than any time in history. So let us try to understand history then. I'll begin from the 1971, the War of Independence for Bangladesh, and India played a big role in a very big way. More than 10 million Bangladeshis took refuge in the Indian side, and they repatriated quite faster, as Bangladesh got the independence. And also there was a decisive military and strategic support for the liberation war. In terms of training, providing the safe haven, and also the radio transmission in Kolkata for boosting up the morale of the Bangladeshis, and the Mukti Bahinis were also quite landmark. So Bangladeshis, even from the primary level, elementary school levels up to the higher studies level, documented studies are done that provide a clear recognition of this historical role played by India in the independence war of Bangladesh. Now, what happened after the independence? The Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman was there until 1975, and if we look at the top two priorities of Bangabandhu's foreign policy, we see that it was simple: recognition and reconstruction. For the newly independent country, the more diplomatic recognition we get, the better. And also, because it was a war-ravaged country, the need for the hard cash, foreign aid, or foreign financial support, either from bilateral donor countries or from multilateral agencies, were the top priorities. So within this context, Bangladesh began its diplomatic journey in 1971. And in the initial timeline, there were some concerns because right after the independence of Bangladesh, there was a large presence of the Indian military forces in Bangladesh territory. So the removal of those military forces, foreign military forces from the country was a top priority, and it was a very smooth course because Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman had a very successful diplomatic talks, and a rapid withdrawal of the Indian military forces happened. But there were some discords, some levels of mutual misunderstanding created by a number of factors, including the 1972, Friendship, Cooperation and Peace Treaty that was signed between Bangladesh and India. I mean, if you look at the articles 8, 9, and 10, especially which detail, how the two countries should refrain from, entering into any military alliance that goes against the interests of the others. Apparently, those provisions, those articles look very, very innocent in the context that this bilateral friendship treaty was modeled around the Indo-Soviet friendship agreement. I mean, they carried the same language that you are not supposed to join the military alliance of another country, third country that goes against my interest. But those written provisions were interpreted as India's hegemonic, ambitions towards a newly independent country. So, and also, historians would say that India was also not very happy with this misinterpretation of the treaty, and the Indian diplomatic circle was never willing to refer to this treaty in the subsequent years. It was a diplomatic embarrassment for the two countries for quite some time. So when the treaty ended, sometimes in 1997, nobody even talked about it. Nobody talked about the revival or renewal of this agreement because the treaty has a natural death. When I say that there were some discords in Bangladesh-India relations during the Mujib era, what I also meant is that in 1974, when Bangladesh was looking for the recognition of the Muslim countries, especially Saudi Arabia and Pakistan, and a membership to the OIC, India was not very, very comfortable because Bangladesh, for the Prime Minister of Bangladesh going to Pakistan and normalizing diplomatic relations was considered to be something as a sensitive issue. But for Bangladesh, it was a top priority. Top priority because Bangladesh considered that it has a large Muslim population, and this Muslim or Islamic identity need to be played out. Because if you don't get membership into the OIC, you can't get these oil exporting countries and their financial support. So it was very strategic. I mean, this indicates that the bilateral relations have always transformed from concord and discord in the initial years. Then, if you look at the second political regime in Bangladesh during the General Ziaur Rahman's time, Ziaur Rahman is very, very well recorded for his active foreign policy pursuits. I mean, Bangladesh got membership into the UN Security Council, as a non-permanent member. Bilateral relations with Saudi Arabia and other, Middle Eastern Muslim countries boosted up, and also there was a significant transformation in terms of Bangladesh-India relations because Bangladesh-India relations perhaps went down to all-time lowest point, and at the same time there was a corresponding increase in Bangladesh-China relations. China's, provided diplomatic recognitions to Bangladesh, and defense partnership between Dhaka and Beijing started at the time. It was the time also, if you look at the historical records, then there were some discords with India. The Ganges water treaty was signed in 1977, but prior to the Ganges, there was withdrawal of water from the Ganges, and which did not give a good signal to Bangladeshis because the Ganges barrage, the Ganges and the Farakka barrage, started on a trial run basis, and it was not a very consensual and well agreed process. So there has been always debate about the equitable share of the water on the Bangladeshi side, because Bangladesh is a downstream country, and for many years, let me be very frank, for many years, the Ganges became the prime lens through which Bangladesh to see relations between these two countries. So, it is not only about water; it's also about economy. It's also about emotions. It's also about how a small neighbor sees his large neighbor and an upstream country behaving in terms of the share of the water. One of the major foreign policy overturns in this Roman time was the floating the idea of the South Asian regional cooperation. And in all of the South Asian countries would take this idea very very positively. So it was not only India but the other South Asian neighbors took it very seriously. During the Ziaur Rahman period also there were interesting developments in terms of the insurgency in the Chittagong hilltopes of Bangladesh, and there were some levels of discord between Dhaka and Delhi because Dhaka was not very happy that some of the Chakma rebels were hiding in the Indian state of Tripura, and there were always allegations that they were getting some financial support, safe haven, and training on the Indian side. The South Alpatti emerged as a new problem. It was a small island in the Bay of Bengal, and there were debates between Bangladesh and India about which side of the South Alpatti island belongs to. Even Bangladesh and India went to the international court for the resolution of the maritime boundary, and by the time the Permanent Court of Arbitration, an international tribunal, gave the verdict in 2014, that the island was actually submerged by water because of the climate change and the sea level rise. But look, I mean, these Ganges water, the South Alpatti, the hosting of the rebels in the Indian side were some irritants in Bangladesh-India relations, I would say, from the initial years of the independence. Then came the General Hussain Muhammad Ershad in power, and there was no major significant developments in Bangladesh-India relations. The Ganges Water Treaty that was signed between the Ziaur Rahman government and the Desai government in India, it expired, and there was no interest on the side of the Indian part to renegotiate a deal or to sign another deal. So instead of the treaty, what Ershad got was an MOU, and that was not very significant because it didn't guarantee the flow of water from the Bangladeshi side that was expected. But a major significant development was the beginning of the SAARC as a South Asian regional cooperation platform. But much of the foundations for SAARC was laid by the Ziaur Rahman government. So most observers of foreign policy would say that it was more ceremonial for Ershad to take the credits. Then came the Begum Khaleda Zia government, which actually I include here two episodes of her regime because relations were almost the same. Almost the same in a sense that not very friendly and positive, because a number of thorny issues dominated the relations. On the Bangladeshi side, again, the Ganges water distribution became a prominent issue. The two sides, both Bangladesh and India, accused each other. There were allegations and counter allegations of hosting, or harboring insurgents. India would blame Bangladesh for tolerating the presence of the Kulfa rebels in the country and for providing them some kind of logistic support. Bangladesh had its own share of the blame. It would make the allegations that India was continuing to support the Chakma rebels in the Tripura state. There were pushback and push-ins, which basically says that there were lots of debates about the presence of the irregular migrants of Bangladeshi origin in India. And so whenever India would push in those people in the name of, undocumented migrants, Bangladeshi border forces would push back them. So in the 1990s, we were grown up by watching the media reports of push in and push back. I mean, interestingly, some of these phenomena still continues, showing the prominence of migration as a key issue in bilateral relations between the two countries. Interestingly, Khaleda Zia came back to power after 5 years of interval in 2001 for another 5 years term, and it was the time when the two countries started discussing a number of issues, a number of areas of cooperation, including trade, transit, and connectivity, but not with much success. But there were lots of groundworks done on the technical cooperation aspects, like standardizing the products for import and export. Dhaka Agartala bus service began, but still there were continuing concerns over the insurgency in two sides of the border. From the Bangladeshi side, there are also lots of criticisms about India's lack of interest in reducing the trade barrier. India enjoys a huge trade surplus, and the Bangladeshi side would be keep complaining that the imposition of the tariff and non-tariff barriers by India reduces the opportunity for Bangladesh to narrow the trade gaps. Maritime boundary limitation continued to be a major source of discord between the two countries. Then came the Sheikh Hasina government in 1996. I'm talking about the 1996 government after the first Khaleda Zia's government from 1991 to 1996. Actually, the paradigm shift that I'm going to discuss in a few minutes began. The foundation were laid during the first Hasina government regime in 1996. You see a series of agreements, a series of deals were done at that time, including the Ganges Water Treaty. It was 30 years treaty, and many people would like to argue that that 30 years Ganges Water Agreement provided a framework for bilateral, water cooperation between two countries. India and Bangladesh share, more than 50 common rivers, and the Ganges Water Treaties became a template for water sharing between the two countries. But again, there have always been debates about the measurement of the water and the functions of the Joint River Commission that was supposed to be facilitating cooperation between the two countries in terms of producing scientific data, facilitating dialogues, and also resolving all outstanding issues related to the water cooperation. Putting aside the Ganges Water Treaty, the 1997 Chittagong-Hilltracks Peace Accord was also done between the government of Bangladesh and the Chakma rivers, but it was done at the behest of with the clear support of the Indian government. India provided explicit and implicit support to make sure that the peace treaty is signed. And interestingly, with the signing of the peace accord, it facilitated the repatriation of thousands of Chakma, refugees in the Indian and the northeastern Indian states, to be most precisely in Tripura. But again, there were some temporary hiccups, such as the April 2001 border clash between the BDR and BSF. I mean, the shortest version of the story is that, and again, with the risk of oversimplification, the Bangladeshi side of the story was that it was a Bangladeshi border outpost in the Kurigram district. It's called Romani Border Outpost. What happened is that nearly 30 Indian border security force troops, they occupied it illegally and then started indiscriminate firing, killing innocent villagers. And Bangladeshi side wanted to take full control and regain full control over the border outpost, eventually having a small clash for a temporary few days. But with a quick intervention at the highest level of the two states, at the prime minister level, the tension could have been removed, and there was a relaxation of the tension. Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee from the Indian side and Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina from Bangladesh side had a very successful telephone talk, quickly normalizing the relations, and it never reappeared as a major issue between the two countries. If you look at the present, I say puzzling present. What I mean by puzzling is that something interesting happened in the last decade, and I call it paradigm shift. Why paradigm shift? Because there was tremendous level of. I can see there is a noise coming from someone. Tremendous development in terms of security cooperation and economic cooperation. Let me detail this. First of all, significant exchanges happen in terms of military diplomacy, high-level exchanges by the services chiefs.
Professor, please keep time in your mind.
How much time do I have, sir?
I think 30 minutes was total. So you have already taken 20 minutes more.
Okay, 10 minutes. Fine. Thank you. I will try to finish in the due time. Very good. Thank you for the reminder. Security cooperation took a huge importance. Services chiefs and their exchanges, DG-level talks between the border forces, coast guards, counter-terrorism cooperation, intelligence sharing. I mean, let me just touch on one thing that after the 2014 October Bardhaman blast by some GMB activists, the newly created Indian investigative agency NIA came to Dhaka. There was successful dialogue with the Bangladeshi counterparts. and there are counter visits to India as well, because as I say, there's a shared interest in Bangladesh and India for combating terrorism and militancy. But you cannot fight terrorism successfully with the absence of intelligence sharing. So lots of intelligence sharing happens between the two countries. And if you look at even media reports and also the kind of agreement signed between Dhaka and Delhi over the last 10 years, you see a reflection of prioritizing prioritizing counter-terrorism, sharing of intelligence and information, extradition, mutual legal assistance. These things have a clear significance for making a paradigm shift in Bangladesh-India relations. Also significantly important is the expulsion of Kulfa leaders. More than a dozen Kulfa leaders were expelled from Bangladesh, and they were not handed. They were not handed over to India using a formal extradition process. I mean, it's not that the judicial extradition happened. Most of them were very informal. I mean, Anup Chetia, for example, was handed over to the Indian High Commission in Dhaka, and many of the other top leaders of Kulfa were handed over to the border forces. And clearly indicating that Dhaka does not care about formal bureaucratic barriers to extending security cooperation with India, and it was precisely something quite landmark. Also, equally important was the disruption of the illegal arms supply routes. India has for many years complained that the Ulfa guerrillas and other northeastern rebels not only enjoy some kind of tacit support from Dhaka, but also Bangladesh was used as a transit point for arms smuggling. And during this last 10 years period, we have seen that this arms trafficking route has been significantly disrupted, and even the deactivated weapons which were buried deep underground were also found, recovered, seized, and destroyed, clearly indicating that Dhaka was giving security cooperation a very top priority. Now, moving on to economic cooperation, you see that transit, transshipment, connectivity with Northeast India, with the sub-regional countries, Nepal and Bhutan, Bangladesh, India were the key actors there. The PCIM process involving Bangladesh, China, India, and Myanmar. All of these things also facilitated the construction of huge railroad and transport modalities. The main argument is clear. Argument is that the more and more we do transport, connectivity and transit, the more mutually beneficial will be both the countries. Even recently, Bangladesh and India signed agreements for the use of the seaports. I mean, these are most recent developments indicating that economic cooperation in the areas of transit connectivity is continuing. Border hub, it can be defined as a very small step towards reducing the border smuggling, informal trade, and also reconnecting the frontier communities on both sides. But if you also look at the bus services between Dhaka and Kolkata and Dhaka and the other northeastern neighbors, it clearly indicates that Bangladesh and India were not limiting their cooperation to only transit and transshipment or even some kind of development supports. It incorporated something else, clearly prioritizing that the marginalized peoples in the border, they also they can draw some attention from the policymakers in the capitals. Energy deals, an area of tremendous long-term economic cooperation between the two countries. Latest data indicate that Bangladesh has been importing more than 1,000 megawatts of electricity from the West Bengal side, the grid line, and 200 from Tripura, and there is a future prospect for further energy trade, because the private sector Adani group has signed a deal with Bangladesh for the construction of a coal-fired plant in Jharkhand province, but the entire electricity to be exported to Bangladesh. So you see, relations are being diversified. Relations are being more rock solid compared to what happened in the last 40 years. Tripura had a shortage of internet connectivity, so Bangladesh was also willing to exchange, electricity, internet. Initially starting with the 10 GB of internet bandwidth with Tripura, and people call it a barter trade in terms of like giving internet bandwidth to get the electricity. Now this actually sparks the research question, like what explains this paradigm shift in Bangladesh foreign policy towards India? I mean, it's a paradigm shift because as the historical pathway we saw during the Mujib regime to a Ziaur Rahman regime to Khaleda Zia's regime and also the Ershad regime, relations did not improve to the level that has improved in the last 10 years. So how can we explain this paradigm shift? Now, as a student of international affairs, I would say that there are a number of theories we can use to study. There is a theory of realism, which argues the state is the main actor, but realists are divided on the question of whether there are external pressures or domestic political considerations make the foreign policy outcomes to get effect. Neoclassical realism provides a bridge building platform because unlike the new realism, which talks about the impact of external influence, and classical realism that talks about the domestic factors, neoclassical realism says, well, you know what, both external factors and domestic factors matter. And we draw a diagram here that shows that external factors and factors means influences and incentives or pressures can be channeled through domestic political processes to shape the foreign policy outcomes. Now, what are the external factors we are discussing here? The external factors are the India factor and the China factor. Why? Because as the new realist scholars would argue, the power distribution matters. What we mean by distribution of power is how power is distributed in terms of a particular group of countries whose foreign policy is concerned. Now, if you look at the three indicators of power: population, economic size, and military budgets, in all counts, India and China far outweigh the neighboring countries. So the first influence, whatever you call it, pressure or incentive, comes from India and China for shaping the foreign policy of these small South Asian countries. Now, if you zoom in the India factor, and you see that there is a remarkable continuity in terms of the prioritization of the Look-East policy. What Prime Minister Manmohan Singh said in Look-East policy and Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in Act-East policy was prioritizing the Indian Northeast. So if you look at how Bangladesh responded positively to the Indian policy of Look-East and Act-East, it coincided with the Bangladeshi thrust of the foreign policy about Look-East policy as well. But in terms of the incentives, India also tried to provide state credits and investment to make sure that the Bangladeshi side is well on board in facilitating cooperation. But you also see that China has been a long-standing defense partner. And also China was coming up with also lucrative investment opportunity of $40 billion under the Belt and Road Initiative. So any discussion of foreign policy decisions in Bangladesh with regard to Bangladesh in the relations must begin with an understanding of this power distribution and how the India factor and the China factor plays their big roles. Then look into the domestic level factors. And I am going to argue that 4 variables play an important role. First, alignment of national priorities. Second, centralized decision-making. Thirdly, elite cohesion. And fourthly, interest group role. Let me just briefly explain this thing. First of all, it is not that just because India wanted or China put pressures or India put pressures for improved economic and security cooperation, Bangladesh responded positively. No. Those incentives and pressures were, I would argue, were well aligned with the visions that Bangladesh had in terms of its national foreign policy priorities. And these visions are well documented in Vision 2021 and Vision 2041, which clearly talks about economic prosperity. Now, so what you see here is interesting that Bangladesh is trying to pragmatically manage relations with both India and China. Then if you look at the way how decisions are made, it's centralized. The Prime Minister makes vital decisions. And because he has a significant, friendly relations with some top Indian leaders, it has been very easy to manage the foreign policy decision-making process in Bangladesh. Thirdly, elite cohesion. Neither the civilian bureaucracy nor the military bureaucracy pose tremendous pressures on this significant economic and security cooperation between Dhaka and Delhi. And finally, the business lobbies were providing crucial support for this improved economic cooperation between Dhaka and Delhi. I'm going to finish with the last two slides showing what is the future. I mean, future in terms of the last 10 years. First of all, I would like to argue that this course is going to continue, but there will be some thorny issues that needs to be dealt. First of all is the trade imbalance. There's a huge trade imbalance, and the trade balance is actually in favor of India. So, in order to
Professor, going to better in 2 minutes if you because and the question answer you can cover it. Yeah.
Yes, sure. These are the 4 issues I would like to argue. The trade imbalance, common rivers and their sharing would be continuing to be, a central theme. I mean, Tista, for example, remains a thorny issue. Irregular migration and the NRC debate, and finally the Rohingya issue. Conclusion, 30 seconds. India's neighborhood policy, I would like to argue that it needs to be consistent with its regional and global aspirations, because the main argument is that as India rises and has lots of international ambitions, it would be nice for India to patch up its neighborhood policy and making sure that these areas of discourse are well identified and there's a credible and constructive dialogue to deal with them. So I conclude by saying that there's a need for more candid discussions of the thorny issues. Let's not bury them behind the carpet but instead frankly discuss the challenges and solve them. With that, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ashraf Ali, for your wonderful presentation and many issues of concern between the two countries, particularly the issue of contention between the two countries and other areas.
Sir, I think there is a technical problem from your end because the hello. Hello.
They won't mute themselves.
Sir,
the voice is echoing.
Sir, sir. Actually, there is I think this technical problem from your end only because, sir, I can hear a repeated voice of yours. It is echoing.
Because you somebody is unmute there. This is the reason.
Yeah, now it's okay. Sir, now it's okay. Yeah.
I'm not getting any echo voice.
Yeah. Okay, sir. Yeah, yes, it is okay. Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
So, thank you very much, Professor, for this wonderful presentations. Definitely, we will have questions, and then you will have more time for answering. I think I thought the organizer had asked me to give not more than 30 minutes, but anyway, you have taken your time, and I think you had made a wonderful presentations. You had started your presentations particularly on the issue, that very hot issue in Bangladesh today. Yesterday, I was also discussing with one of my friend in Bangladesh, and he also said, that our Prime Minister is very angry on India. I said, what happened with Bangladesh? Why is he so angry today? She said that he told that yes, onion is a very big issue in Bangladesh. That the Indian government has banned exporting onion to the foreign country, any foreign country. In the daytime, while I was talking, my wife, she was also very angry on that. She see that what is happening. The tomato and the onions are more than 100 rupees a kg in the market. How the poor people like us will survive if we will buy tomato and onion in 100 rupees. So of course there are problems, there are issues between the two countries. Of course there is the domestic needs as well as there is neighborhood or regional liabilities, that India being a regional power, or you can say an emerging economy, has to keep in mind keeping these issues. Thank you very much for Hilsa Hilsa issues that the taste. Hilsa, I'm vegetarian, but I have heard that Hilsa is a very delicious fish for in Bengal, and Bangladesh is the producer of the Hilsa fish. But I do find that they are also endangered these days because of the environmental issues. That Hilsa, they used to They used to caught in near Chandpur or in Borisal. Now, because of the increasing salinity in the water, the hilsa had come very close to the Indian border. So that is a threat that how many years that the Bangladeshis and the Bengali people will enjoy hilsa fish without any danger from the environment and climate change. So I hope that I think the two countries would address this issue as well to maintain their staple diet of entertaining or enjoying hilsa fish in near future. Very correctly you had pointed out, and I'm very you pointed out about the historical, the retrospective analysis of India-Bangladesh relations from the 1971 particularly. But I think what we are in 21st century, we are in 2020, and I being a close follower of India-Bangladesh relations, I do find there are paradigm shift in India-Bangladesh relations, or there are, I would say that the old glitches of India-Bangladesh relations are faded away. They are now not that much of influential in determining the relations. Though we are part of common ecological organic system, we are having interdependencies. Being politically divided, still we are dependent on each other about the natural resources and all other issues. Particularly what you said about the export or import of basic essential commodities like onion and like spices. And one of your economists, Mustafizur Rahman, has categorically stated that the 30% of the Bangladesh prices inflations are controlled because of the India and Bangladesh trade of basic essentials. So if India stops any kind of these exports, that the 30% rise would take place in Bangladesh. So of course there are interdependencies or complex interdependencies between the two countries. But what I said that now it's not the old Bangladesh, the old clutches of what you have talked about, the liberation war generations, or you can say the relations. What Pranab Mukherjee used to say, that I'm the Jamai of Bangladesh, and the Bangladeshi greeted him, yes, you are the Jamai of Bangladesh. I think those relations, those ties are now faded away, and the new generations are taking place in Bangladesh and in India as well. Definitely, Bangladesh is now in the 21st century, and the economy of the agro-based society is shifting to market economy, where skilled, semi-skilled, skilled workforces are significantly contributing to the growth of Bangladesh in last few decades. You can say that more than $15 billion comes from the remittances, comes from the migrant labor forces, and they are becoming very significant force. Bangladesh is doing wonderful in ready-made garments and pharmaceutical and other sectors. So keeping that the wonderful performance of economy, Bangladesh now has graduated from the least developed countries to the developing countries. So that wonderful performance that Bangladesh economy has been witnessed. But what do I find, that what Bangladesh was in 1971, what the Bangladeshis they sacrificed, and India had been instrumental to protect and to safeguard the ethos and values that the Bangladeshis were fighting. That was democracy, secularism, socialism, and Bengali nationalism. I think that that Bangladeshis they sacrificed their lives for democracy and secularism is again faded out. Now there is the dichotomy has been created in Bangladesh, the dichotomy between the values and the goals. And in this dichotomy, that the Bangladeshi themselves had started prioritizing the goals rather than the values. And you can see that the democratic ethos and values in Bangladesh are receding today. Further, the way the position has disappeared from the central politics of Bangladesh, or the opposition had disappeared from the Jatiya Sansad of Bangladesh. So my submission is that what the old generations, the old clergies claimed to have a strong tie between the two countries, that the strong sharing of cultural and democratic values are now faded away between the two countries. And now what is happening, that the two countries have started emphasizing on the goals rather than the values. I do categorize in three categories. In particularly keeping in Bangladesh, there are three sections or three thoughts types of thinkings are in Bangladesh. That liberals, what I said, the liberal streams, they are the progressive, the democratic, secular forces. They believe what they believe in civilizational linkages, historical legacies, and what the common secular cultural ethos and values. What India also believed. That liberal streams, they try to maintain the closer relations between the two countries from the Mujibur Rahman periods that you correctly pointed out in your presentations. But those civilizational ethos and values, that the sacrifice in the liberation war was the bonding factor between the two countries over the years. But what happened that this liberal forces, what they have dominated the discourse between India and Bangladesh relations for last 40 years. In the recent 40 years, or you can say during the Mujibur Rahman periods in particular had faded away, while the radical forces had started dominating in Bangladesh discourse, where these radical and conservative forces who believed in religious-centric, ideological, dogmatic approaches in their domestic policies as well as in the foreign policy, or they believed more on religious affinities, parochial class interests, and unilateral trade in developing their foreign policy approaches. So what happened that these radical forces, you can see very much what happened between 1975 to 1990, while the military regime was into power, that how that Bangladesh and relations, the honeymoon period was over, and that the conflict and contentions between the two countries had been dominated. And the same thing you can see again from 2001 to 2006, while BNP was into power, the two countries, they did not go for any kind of substantial agreements between the two countries. They did not have developed any cooperative ties from 1970 and in 2001 to 2006. So my point is that the liberals had been dominated for the time being by the radicals. But what is happening now in the recent past, in New Bangladesh, I said that the agro-based society is shifting to the market-based economy. The realist forces had come into power. I would say the new generations, they forgot what happened in 1971. The new generation, they forgot what happened during the military regimes. Basically, I would say the post-military regime generations had come into power or started dominating the discourse in Bangladesh. That these liberals, basically, they are rational, they are power maximizer, they are coalition builder for profit making. They mean for fair equity, and they are seekers and risk takers. They believe in peaceful coexistence, mutual benefits based on rational calculations. Basically, they believe in the geopolitical interest or geoeconomic potentials or geostrategic calculations. And these realist forces, basically, they are just talking that we are not supposed to follow what the liberals used to say and what the radicals used to say. We are looking that wherever Bangladesh can prosper, wherever Bangladesh can be benefited, that the country should join that country. So there are in this discourse, while you will say the realists, they have started taking the advantages of what the structural factors are dominating in South Asia, or what the functional factors is dominating in South Asia. So the realists, they have started thinking in the sense of that there is asymmetry in between India and Bangladesh on their economy, on their size and their military, and to counterbalance this asymmetry or to balancing the threat in South Asia, that Bangladesh had started allying or had started entertaining the extra regional powers into the region. During the Cold War period, very much Americans were there. Now in the post-Cold War period, the Chinese are very much into Bangladesh. They are investing in their defense sector. They are investing in different sensitive projects that is not very much comfortable for India. But it gives that these asymmetry between the structural asymmetry between India and Bangladesh gives an apologetic behavior to the smaller states. And you said Bangladesh is a smaller state. Of course, Bangladesh is a smaller states, but it gives Bangladesh also takes the apologetic approach to entertain extra regional powers to counterbalance India within the region, and that creates like one kind of misunderstanding or one kind of mistrust, or you can say that differentiating threat perceptions dominates the bilateral relations between the two countries. Of course, India tried its best to come out whatever the grievances that Bangladesh had with India, particularly on land boundary agreements. You see that we have concluded land boundary agreement in 2015. We tried to resolve Ganges water issues amicably in 1996. There were some problems of CST that India had been instrumental in resolving the issue of Chittagong Hill Tract. So India had never been a threat. Can Bangladesh give a single example that India was ever a military threat to Bangladesh? No. India had been helping hand providing military and security support to the Bengali people while in 1971, and whenever it was required, wherever it was required in South Asia, India had been instrumental to providing peace and stability in the region. India was never a threat to Bangladesh economically. India was never a threat to Bangladesh militarily, and India was never trying to dominate the discourse by its regional hegemonic tendencies that we will not. We try to address the issues very amicable manner between the two countries. So I think what is the point that the structural aspects had been used by some of the forces to distance the two countries, but and the values, the ethos, they try to unite the two countries. But the realists are looking both the aspects, the structural aspects and the other ethos or goals that where they should align with each other. What India had been doing with Bangladesh in the last few years, particularly as I said, that India has a very clear-cut three policy objectives vis-a-vis Bangladesh. One is that security, and security is the prime concern of India, keeping northeastern states, the sensitive northeastern states, bordering with China, bordering with Myanmar, and you yourself said that Bangladesh had very categorically addressed the India's security concern, particularly while Sheikh Hasina came into power. That Bangladesh had been instrumental to resolve the problem of India's problem on India's eastern border from insurgent groups or separatist groups like Kulfa and all these countries. So India had, while India maintains relations with Bangladesh, the security is the prime. Either it's internal security issues or it's external security issues. Of course, Bangladesh had become instrumental to resolve the internal security issues what India was raising, but having any kind of or inviting any kind of external forces or extra regional forces again concerns to India. Either the Chinese, they invest in Sylhet airport, or Chinese, they invest in Tista barrage developments that is very close to the India chicken neck, and that is very close to India's northeastern states. It concerns India if the Chinese are coming and developing the ports in Chittagong or in Paira and all these countries. That concerns India. So of course, the India always keeps security as the one of the priority areas of between the two countries. Second point comes with the economic development, and that India, I'm sure that India did not realize the significance of Bangladesh in economic development, that India did not take a comprehensive approach of developing economic relations with all South Asian countries. But what it has been provided, you said yourself, that from Narasimha Rao period, while India has started focusing on Look East policy, and that later had been adopted by other governments, that India had started giving emphasis or giving priorities to Bangladesh as well as the northeastern states to have to develop northeastern states, that we have started giving much emphasis on its policy. So for the economic development, for the security, and for the political stability, the third objective, that Bangladesh should be politically stable, so there should not be any kind of band or any kind of instability that creates again a security problem for India. What India had basically made a significant shift in its foreign policy towards Bangladesh particularly in last 3 decades, from 1991 to 2020, and that made that India tried to deliver the best to Bangladesh. First shift was from that what India believed in reciprocity in initial years, that during Indira Gandhi and before that we will develop the relations based on reciprocity. India made a shift that no, we will develop relations with the neighboring countries, including Bangladesh, on the basis of non-reciprocity. That was the example from Gujarat Doctrine. You can see that Gujarat Doctrine had been instrumental in resolving the issue of Ganges water, in bringing CSD issues and starting bus diplomacy and all. The second shift had come out from India's foreign policy, that India used to have a bilateral approach while dealing with Bangladesh earlier. All the water issues, border issues, or connectivity issues, and all these issues. But in the last few years, particularly from Manmohan Singh government, that India had made a shift. 10th Joint River Water Commission's meeting, you can say, there we had made a significant shift that no, we will have a multilateral approach to resolve all the bilateral issues. And there are significant examples like in the Ganges water or Teesta water, all these issues that we had thought that we will take a basin-wise approach to resolve the issues rather than the country-specific approach. And in that, if the affecting party or if the party in Ganges water issues is Nepal, we will also ask Nepal to join the. So India had made the second shift from bilateralism to multilateralism. Not only water issues in connectivity also. In connectivity, that while India was asking a transit to northeast, Bangladesh was earlier reluctant, but Bangladesh had been very positive in providing the connectivity to India from mainland to northeast. India had also made a significant shift and had included that yes, if we can have access through Bangladesh to northeast, let the Bangladeshis also utilize the Indian territory to have access to Nepal and Bhutan, or in market access as well as in the power hydroelectricity power corporations. And India had made a significant shift from the bilateralism to multilateralism. That one more example is BBIN. We have seen that we tried to make a motor vehicle agreement so that all the countries can utilize. My point is there that whatever the resource nationalism was there, earlier we used to have nationalized our resources for our benefits. Now we had tried to take a regional approach, and that resource nationalism had been made a significant shift to resource sharing formula that lets the other countries, let the other neighbors also utilize the resources, whatever we are having. So that had made a very significant shift from resource nationalism to resource sharing. Particularly while in 2016 Modi was participating in SAARC summit in Kathmandu, he had made three announcements. One was that we will develop a power corridor, and in that power corridor, we will try to extend the benefits to all the neighboring countries by developing this power corridor. I think the gesture is that today India and Bangladesh has very significant cooperation in energy sector. You yourself said, but I think the volume of trade between the two countries is more than 2,000 megawatt between the two countries. The second, that India has also investing and developing LNG terminals in Bangladesh coastal area, so that the energy can be imported and can supply to Bangladesh. Third, that India is also building a oil and gas pipeline from Numaligarh to Banglabandha, so that the Bangladesh can also be supplied the oil and gas from Assam Numaligarh gas field. India is trying to have a sharing formula. Let the Bangladesh also take the benefits. If Bangladesh is helping us in our connectivity projects, if Bangladesh is helping us in developing northeastern regions, why not Bangladesh should develop with us? So we have developed a developmental ties between the two countries. Or to materialize this approach, what India did, India has developed an approach from negative unilateralism to constructive unilateralism, and that constructive unilateralism has become an instrumental in developing relations between the two countries. This constructive unilateralism has come out where India has extended around $8 billion of line of credit. That is the largest line of credit that India has provided to any country, that is Bangladesh. And those line of credits are development of infrastructures, locomotive, railway, and connectivity. All these projects, so that once the Bangladesh is infrastructurally developed, automatically that India will also have access to northeastern states very easily. So that kind of constructive unilateralism had given a very good, very strong understanding between the two countries. And what happened? Finally, you will say that one more shift has come out from Manmohan Singh. While Manmohan Singh had come to Bangladesh, we had signed a framework cooperation agreement. Framework cooperation agreement. In that framework cooperation agreement, the two countries had developed an understanding that we will not de-link the issues, that political issues with economic issues and economic issues with security issues. We will not de-link. We will not deal with issue wise, or we will have a comprehensive approach. We will have a package deal. What Robert Putnam used to say, that we should have a package deal. In the package deal, if Bangladesh is benefited by one issue, or if India is benefited by another issue, that would benefit to both the countries. And in that gesture, in that package deal, I think that what India was instrumental in signing land boundary agreement, and I think there were no grievances from Bangladesh on the land boundary agreements. There are a number of issues on trade, non-tariff barriers, tariff barriers, duty-free access, on power corridor, many issues where India and Bangladesh, they have taken all the issues all together and had come out that we should develop a sub-regional cooperations within the Eastern South Asian sub-region, so that all the countries can develop together. I would not take much time. I would be happy to in the question answer, but of course there are also shift in India's mindset. It is also new India now. It is not that old India. It is also an economic power India. Now India is doing very well in economic sector. It is one of the largest, fastest growing economy in the world. the India, that 65% of the population of India is the young population, so it is a young India. So if the two countries would come together, if two countries will invest in each other's development, I think the two countries would prosper. I would say that finally there are constraints and complexities in the relationship, and because of the complex constraints and complexities, whatever the projects are there, India has announced the projects. Maybe because India at the domestic front also, India is very slow in implementation of the projects. If any projects had been announced in India at domestic level, that would also progress very, very slow. So it's not, and Bangladesh is not exception that we have announced some projects and the progress is very slow. The disbursement of the line of credit is very slow. Of course, there are problems because the economic force behind strategic dimension is still weak in between the two countries. India is not a deep pocket as China or Japan. China has a deep pocket. China can invest in any country. It can invest. It has invested in Pakistan about more than 62 billion. It has invested in Sri Lanka more than $12 billion. But I'm sure that Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they understand the consequences and implications of what the Chinese are having, developing the Habantot port or Gwadar port, how it would impact on their economy. But if the Bangladesh in China is coming into Bangladesh, it would certainly have implications. That Bangladesh, we do not have that much of deep pockets what the Chinese had. But what the Chinese are investing in ready-made garment sector, how it would impact on the domestic ready-made garment sector, that we will see in coming future. So this is one of the constants. The second, of course, there are bureaucratic and systemic accountability on economic vigilance. India is a democratic society. The Indian government is accountable to the 1.2 billion people. It is a democracy. It is the largest functional democracy where that 700 to 800 million people vote at a time. We are accountable. Bureaucracy is there. Bureaucracy also takes time. Parliament also takes time. We do not work like China, that there are no accountability. There is only top-down approach. It's not there. Bangladesh and India, we have bottom-up approach. We have to keep the people's concerns into mind, people's opinion into mind. So there are, of course, there are bureaucratic hurdles. There are issues of federalism. There are issues of coalition politics. What you know about Teesta issue, that Indian government was keen to resolve the Teesta issue. And very interesting point about Teesta issue, I tell you that what Bangladeshis were expecting 60-40 ratios of water sharing between the two countries about Teesta. But Manmohan Singh government said, no, we will take a lenient approach and we will have a 50-50% sharing formula. Let the Bangladeshis take 50% instead of 40%. And with all the bag and baggage, while Manmohan Singh was going to Bangladesh with all the documents to sign it and to finalize the Teesta deal, the coalition politics and the federal politics dominated the discourse. The Teesta could not finalize, could not materialize. That is unfortunate between the two countries because the West Bengal has its own need, and the East Bengal, the West Bengal should also has to answer to their people, the North Bengal people. So it could not materialize. It is not, very interesting fact. In 1996 treaty, Jyoti Basu was the leading person who had been instrumental in Ganges Water Treaty of 1996. But in this Teesta issue, that the West Bengal government was not in favor of going what the treaty's draft was prepared and could not materialize. So that is also very important issue, that the federal politics, coalition politics, and the structural hurdles are dominating, have become hurdle between the two countries, developing very more smooth, more closer ties. Of course, that there are also inadequate use of soft power between the two countries. that what kind of the values, ethos we were fighting together. India had sacrificed 20,000 people in 1971. Bangladesh is sacrificed 3 billion people in 3 million people in 1971. That the sacrifice of values, ethos are now not that much of concerns. The people of both the countries are more goal oriented rather than the value oriented, and because of that goal orientations, the cooperation that the two countries basically we are more thinking in the sense of balancing power or balancing threats rather than coming together. So I think we need to have we need to change the mindset. We need to change need to have more integrated approach, particularly in this COVID-19 phase. What you say that where the nationalism and or where the state has become a surveillance states and all the activities would be regulated. I think we should have a more robust approach. We should have a more cohesive society. We should have more resilient society in South Asia to develop a cooperative or developmental ties between the two countries so that the two countries can develop. So I have given a broader approach of what the India is doing with Bangladesh and what the Bangladesh has reciprocated. But I do find if I mark today India and Bangladesh relations, how they are doing, I think out of 10, I would say there are the 8 marks should go by now. There are small issues of onion or hilsa, or there are small issues we need to address. Of course, we need to address, but moreover, in the broader perspective, the two countries are very much in the positive mood to resolve the issues and concerns of between the two countries or in the region. So thank you very much. I would now open it for the question answer. Once the question answer is, then we will have. Is it okay, Professor?
Yes, sir. It is okay. So, sir, I'm going into the question answer session.
Yes.
So we have got so, sir, first of all, thank you to you also for your wonderful deliberation. Thanks to Dr. ASM Ali Ashraf sir also for his deliberation. And now we are moving to the Q&A session. So the first question is for Dr. Ashraf Ali. The question has been asked by Dr. Somindra Mohan Biswas that do you think the recent hot and cold relationship between India and Bangladesh has a negative effect on the cultural and sports exchanges between the two countries in recent times?
I think you should read all the questions.
I can see the questions actually on the chat box.
Addressing to him so that he can answer the questions all together.
Okay, so
Okay,
sir, will you like to take one by one, or should I read out all the questions?
Yeah, you read out once and then all the questions so that he can answer in all together.
Actually, Dr. Chandra, I can see the questions on the chat box. Even Depthanu doesn't have to read them. I can see and I can answer them by looking at the chat box.
Sir. Okay, sir. Then you just go ahead.
Shall I address one by one?
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. I think these are very, very interesting questions, and thank you so much, Dr. Sanjay, for giving also a very comprehensive, assessment of the bilateral relations between Bangladesh and India. And also the questions are very interesting. So let me first tackle the first one. Dr. Somindra asked whether these hot and cold relations have any impact on the cultural and sports. I don't think so, to be honest. First of all, you need to define what is hot and what is cold. Maybe by hot, maybe by cold, you are referring to Tista. All the hot issues we have both discussed in terms of increased cooperation between Dhaka and Delhi. The issues that should be defined as cold would be like, I guess, water sharing, trade imbalances, and but I don't think that these have any negative impact on cultural and sports exchange. The first thing I want to say is that look at the flow of Bangladeshis traveling to India. The number keeps increasing, and medical tourism especially is a very significant thrust sector for India. I mean, quite a large number of people go to India for seeing doctors for medical treatment purposes, and also for tourism purposes. That number has not been affected by any kind of bilateral diplomatic ups and downs. So a straightforward answer would be that both countries are behind the scene also trying to patch up some of the differences, and I don't see that culture and sports are going to be affected. But if you have any data, do let me know. I mean, what kind of? I have never heard that any sporting event has been cancelled due to any kind of issues between the two countries. So that's why I'm asking this question. Second one, Dr. Samindra also asked another question. Going by recent developments in India in the context of Indo-China border situation, what is the standpoint of Bangladesh regarding this, especially in the view? Okay. First of all, I think Bangladesh has adopted a policy of, let's say, strategic ambiguity. No public comments have been made on the India-China border disputes. I think the reason is very obvious. Given the fact that Bangladesh and China have developed such a wonderful strategic and defense partnership over the last 40 years, I mean, it's quite reasonable that Bangladesh would not do anything that will hurt the relations. So even during my presentation, I said that Bangladesh-India relations have significantly improved the last decade, but not at the cost of Bangladesh-China relations. So you have to put that thing into context that Bangladesh pursues a foreign policy of pragmatism that clearly benefits from developing mutual relations with both China and India. Next question comes from SK Panda. The question is, do you think I think the Tiara or the Tista maybe? Tista water issue is one of the most important issues between the two countries, creating a soft rise in tension. Tista. Soft rise in tension. I mean, it's not a tension, it's more like disappointment. And as Dr. Chandra has rightly said, that the Indian federal politics, coalition politics, the central government cannot always do what it wants because it has to get the consent of the provincial, the federal states. I mean, and he also made it clear that it also makes sense. You have to understand who's in power in the concerned states. Either Jyoti Basu in 1996 versus Mamata Banerjee in 2001, huge difference. And also it is. I mean, so let's say Bangladeshis have come to understand that federal structure, coalition politics, and also the domestic political factors in West Bengal have made these things very, very complicated. But at the end of the day, people who would like to see diplomatic transactions to be reciprocity, transactions should be reciprocal transaction for them. There is a perception among Bangladeshis that the Tista debacle or the failure of India not to sign the Tista has really had a huge, I would say, diplomatic disaster for the time being. And also, frankly speaking, for many years, as I said before, Bangladesh has seen these bilateral relations through the lens of Ganges. Now unfortunately, Tista became another lens. So these are not very, very, very good, indicators in terms of promoting good relations. But there is pragmatism on both sides, and both sides have learned how to move forward, putting aside some areas of difference and debacles. That's the brighter part. Okay, next is another question by Dr. Samindra. Is there any alternative to Tista water sharing? I don't know. I haven't looked very deeply into these water disputes, but I have to, frankly speaking, study more to answer this question. Prashanta Kumar Sharma, the question is, kindly highlight the intricacies of border facing by India, conundrums of illegal immigration into India from Bangladesh. Also, given its increasing population and impending dangers of climate change, and how Bangladesh, India are going to cooperate on this. Okay, fine. I think these are very interesting questions. I mean, immigration or irregular migration has long been any a long-standing area of concern between Bangladesh and India. Especially the Indian side has long been making these claims that I think the Committee of Ministers once came up with a number. Frankly speaking, these numbers are unsubstantiated. Let me be very frank. The indications here is that because Bangladesh is a densely populated country and climate change is happening, a good number of people are moving out to India. Do not give me the data and give me the credible source of the data and come up with more realistic explanations of why people are moving out. Then I'll be agreeing with your data. But interestingly, if you look at the numbers of Indians working in Bangladesh, the undocumented Indians, it would be quite astonishing. And the remittances being sent by Dhaka, the remittances sent by Indians from working in Bangladesh to Indian state is also very, very interesting, billions of dollars. So what I think is that, this kind of accusation and counter-accusation doesn't work very effectively. Look at the NRC debate, the National Register of Citizenship debate, and the debacle here. I mean, what happened in the Assam state? 20 lakhs or 20 million people were found undocumented, and the large majority of them were not Muslims. So the pointing finger to the numbers and making this hypothesis doesn't help actually, because it is a fact that climate changes happen. There is increased salinity, and people are moving from the rural to the urban areas of Bangladesh. But jumping into a conclusion that they are moving to India without any facts and figures, and also ignoring the fact that on different human development indicators, people are in Bangladesh doing much better than in the Indian states. There is no valid reason for people to move out of Bangladesh and going to India. Going back to the next question, Dr. Samindra has asked another question. Trafficking of all kinds, human and drugs. Look, I mean, this is a very bilateral issue, and if you look at the media reports, or even have some friends working in the borders, in the border forces, and people from both sides move irregularly. It is not that people from Bangladesh move only to India. There are also documented cases of Indians moving inside Bangladesh, in a very irregular way. So what I would argue is that it's not to blame the two countries consciously facilitating this irregular migration or human trafficking. I would rather say that even human traffickers, human smugglers, drug smugglers, arms smugglers, and transnational criminals, they are actually exploiting the porous border in both countries, taking advantage. The biggest or the worst example would be the Hooghly artisan terrorist attack in Bangladesh, in Dhaka in 2016, 1st July. That verdict has come. So the documents and the data are now very public. Documents do reveal that the terrorist used smuggled weapons to carry out the attack, and those smuggled weapons and explosives came from India. Now, this is the point. The point is that nobody in Bangladesh is blaming the Indian government. Nobody in Bangladesh is blaming the Indian, state of West Bengal. Rather, people are very candid, and they agree that transnational terrorists have exploited the transnational criminal methods to smuggle these weapons and explosives from the Indian state of West Bengal. And I think that both countries are very pragmatic, and as a result, when the NIA people come to Dhaka, they find very friendly counterparts to work with with them. So the joint counter-terrorism and intelligence sharing efforts that I mentioned before clearly indicate a recognition on both sides that criminals, traffickers, and the bad guys are exploiting these porous borders. Okay. I don't understand this question. I think this question is to Professor Sanjoy. The next question.
Yes, I think all the questions. Thank you very much, Professor, for your answering many of the questions. I would not touch the questions it was asked to you, but I would come the questions that asked to me as well. There are questions. First, let me tell that one of my student, very bright student, Prashant Kumar Sharma, is also there. He has worked wonderfully on environmental issues. He is been my direct student in JNU. Prashant, are you there? He
Sir,
must be.
I think he had some technical issues. Just now he has left.
Yes,
I
I'm
think.
there.
Yeah. He has returned.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm there. Oh, great to see you and asking this wonderful question. So now let me come to the question asked to me. Do you think the trafficking of all kind of human? Let me come very categorically. If there is no illegal trade in between India and Bangladesh, the Bangladeshi inflation will go very high. The illegal trade is basically a stabilizing factor of trade of prices in Bangladesh. That many of the essential goods, including onion, cattle, like garlics and all that, and the spices, they stabilize the market within Bangladesh. Otherwise, the price would go very high. However, in the last few years, that India is trying to regulate the border to control all kinds of illegal trades between the two countries. There are human traffickings, there are drug traffickings, there are illegal arms traffickings. There are a number of cases has been reported. The arms trafficking, you can see the largest arms consignment was caught in 2004 in urea fertilizer factory in Chittagong. You can see there are also the fake currency rackets are also illegally had been used, particularly in the Nadia districts and all that districts. The people were throwing the packets on, and that was the mixed. That the two sides people were having access to having that kind of counterfeit currencies to destabilize the economy of two countries. Indian government has come out wonderfully to have to control this illegal trades or illegal trafficking between the two countries. That Indian government had basically fenced the border almost 70 to 75% border had already been fenced between the two countries. There are a lot of problems because out of 4,000 border, around 1,000 kilometers border is riverine border, and that you can't fence those areas. Once you fence it, that because of the change of the courses of the rivers, that the fence has dismantled. So it has not been successful, but in many areas it had been successful to fence this border. I have written a very good article. It is published in World Fact that in California, that good fence make good neighbors. Once you have fencings, that there will be more illegal activities between the two countries. There will be more border. There will be less border firings, and the innocent people will not be killed. And once the innocent people will not be killed on the border, the tension between the emotional distancing between the two countries would reduce, because most of the killings they take place between 2 to 4 o'clock in the morning, and those are the people who are crossing. They are basically illegal traffickers. They are trafficking the human. They are trafficking the drugs. They are trafficking the basic goods between the two countries. Very interesting fact I would tell you, that what the cattle were also smuggled from Bangladesh, from India to Bangladesh. In the last 5-6 years, the number of the cattle smuggling has come down 70%. That has declined 70%. So my point is that India is trying to make a good neighbor by good fence, and to have the local to address the local needs between the two countries. We are promoting border hearts, that there would be weekly border hearts, that the local people can have exchange goods and can buy the goods from one country to other country, kind of thing. So that kind of promotions are there. So my point is there that there are three types of border, as Andrea Leon has talked about. There is political border, there is economic border, and there is military border. So we need more economic border, so there could be more regulated activities. There would be more upgraded border posts, and everything would be legally crossed between the two countries. Of course, we need to address the non-tariff barriers and delay in exchange of goods and trades. That would help the two countries. So I think we are trying to control the nexus of the illegal traffickers, what they are trafficking by state initiatives And for that, we are also trying to develop the borders by border area developmental programs. India is releasing funds every 5 years for the border developmental area program. So what is happening that we have developed very good roads along the border of Bangladesh, so that you can have more vigilance on the border, and you can have more legal activities along the border. There were problems about the adverse enclave and adverse purchase of land that we have addressed in 2015 by land boundary agreements. So India and Bangladesh, we are trying to regulate each other's by legal means, and I think we will reach on very good solutions. Now, the second very interesting question, that India's Atmanirbhar approach policy, how it would connect the two countries, or it would affect the two countries. I would say that while there will be investment in India, while there will be the companies, international companies would come to India, while India will mobilize the investment and have better market and better productivity within the country, better supply chain, it would definitely directly or indirectly benefit to Bangladesh as well. But I think what is required for the investment, you need a peace, you need stability, you need cooperation, you need infrastructure, you need labor laws, you need land acquisition policy. There are a number of issues that the government has to address domestically as well as regionally, because if you really want to go to northeast and develop the northeastern states, you need a cooperation from Bangladesh. If you really want a peace and stable South Asia region, you need a cooperation from Bangladesh. They are very important. If you really need any kind of labor support, and if any cheap labor is coming from Bangladesh or from other countries, that you need them also equally to prosper their labor market, to prosper and to attract more investments across the world. So that if the India has this policy of Atmanirbhar, that Atmanirbhar policy, Modi from the very beginning said the neighbor first policy, or he said that we will develop a developmental board. So we will take all the neighbors together, sabka saath sabka vikas, that we will take all the neighbors all together in the development. I think whatever the policies would come, it would equally benefit to Bangladesh. It would not distance the two countries, it would come closer. Very important question. The third question had been asked by Mr. Kon Sun Law. He had asked that how the Chinese investment or Chinese access to Bangladesh, that does India will lose Bangladesh? I'm sure that this kind of investment, if there is positive investment in Bangladesh, if there is investment in economic sector, infrastructure development sector, that doesn't have geostrategic implications for India. That India would never lose Bangladesh. I think Bangladesh had to be very careful while what type of investment is coming. Is it having any regional implications? Is it having any security implications for any countries? If that kind of approach would be adopted by Bangladesh, I think the two countries would never distance. India would never lose that. Otherwise, also the ties that Bangladesh and India has very unique relations that Bangladesh and China doesn't have. We are having very unique relations. We are having complex interdependencies on all the aspects, either the economic development or the security or the political issues. I think once we will have that because of this complex interdependencies, that the two countries would never distance. Time and again, the political forces would definitely impact the policies or creates advocism in the policies. But in the long term, you can see in the 40 years or 50 years of India-Bangladesh relations, that most of the times that India and Bangladesh relations have been very smooth, but I would say that I think what is most important aspects that need to address in Bangladesh, that you need a strong democratic credentials within the country, so that if there is very strong positions and oppositions in Bangladesh, the Bangladesh political democracy would flourish, that India and Bangladesh will ever remain closer. So I think that democratic ethos and values are, or secular ethos and values between the two countries are the bounding ethos and values. So that I think the two countries should focus on these values to intact. So with these, I think there is no other question, and I think we should stop. We have taken a lot of time. It is almost more than six. It's 6:20. So I think we should stop it.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, please.
Do you think that as I see that you commented before that there is a that democracy is residing in Bangladesh, and there are lots of interesting observations in Bangladesh as well, that to what extent India has contributed to these democratic deficits in Bangladesh by ignoring the aspirations of the people. First question, and second question would be, we also see a noticeable rise in kind of the decline of Indian secularism and as evident in the policy of the present government in India.
Yeah, I think though both are. I would not go in detail, but I would give you very straight. I think you will understand. My simple submission is that the democracy is receding in all the countries or worldwide. America has also receded the democratic values in the last few years. You can see, and if you will see that the Economic Intelligence Unit, they come out with the World Democracy Index. In the World Democracy Index, I think we are in the category of flat democracy rather than the full democracy. So that democratic values are receding on all the countries, including Bangladesh and of course in India. I think we need to have more, or you can say what is increasing. The populist politics is increasing, and that populist politics is dominated by the majoritarian discourse, and that is ignoring the rule of law. It is not good for Bangladesh. It is not good for India, because the ethos of Bangladesh, that the people of Bangladesh, they sacrificed, the 3 million people, they sacrificed their values for Bengali nationalism, for secularism, for socialism, for democracy. I think if they would go with the majoritarian discourse, what they did in the 15th constitutional amendment, you are quite aware that they maintained the pragmatic approach to appease the majoritarian community in Bangladesh. That did not address that is basically a populist approach of addressing one. You know what is happening with Hifazat-e-Islam today, what is happening, all that, and you know that how the opposition has been disappeared from the politics of Bangladesh. I think that those party or with one process and with any. So I think that if there is anywhere, either in India or in Bangladesh, that is strong opposition, that would benefit to the people's development, people's right. Any country, if in India also, if the one majoritarian discourse dominates, that is also not with the good ethos, with good taste of India, because India's 200 years freedom struggle also fought for inclusive values, for secular values, and if it is declining anywhere, if the majoritarian discourse is dominating, that is not with the good taste and good ethos of India as well. So I think what we are academicians, you are a professor, I am a professor, we are a part of civil society, we need to strengthen the values, the ethos of democracy, so that we cannot behave like China. You do not know what is happening in China. You do not know what is going on in Xinjiang province, or what is going on Uyghur, or what is, you do not know, because you do not have any. But in India, in Bangladesh, if a Hindu is, or if a minority community or is rights is under attack, if in India a minority community right is under attack, the huge number of people will come out in the street in the support of democratic ethos. So my point is there, I think we need a strong democratic forces. What I would not say what the BNP did in 2001 to 2006. That is also totally majoritarian populist approach. They have aligned with the radical forces, and the way that Bangladeshi they sacrificed in 1974, that was totally against the ethos. What the way they have promoted fundamentalism and radical politics and terrorism in Bangladesh. That is not the Bangladesh. Bangladesh is a different. I know Bangladesh very, very closely. I think in many cases the Bangladesh is more secular than many other South Asian countries. So the ethos of Bangladesh is quite inclusive. That we should promote, and the ethos of India is also inclusive. We should promote those ethos so that the two countries with these values will come together. If we will do the politics of popularism, if we will do the politics of majoritarianism, that the two countries will distance from each other. So I think I have answered what you have asked.
Yes. Good.
Please. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So-
thank you for. They want to give us a lead.
Okay, sir, go ahead. Yeah.
So you just, now floor is with you.
Sir, so first of all, I would like to thank both of you for being with us today for so long, and I'm really glad that both of you have accepted our invitation and have come as a resource person in this webinar. But sir, definitely once this COVID situation this COVID situation ends, we will definitely like to have you physically in our institute. I hope at that time also you will love to come to our institute. So I would like to thank all the participants for their participation today in this webinar. As I have already provided the link for feedback form.
Devantu, I have given a very bright scholar to your college, Prashant Sharma.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So we are also, sir. Definitely, we are also. We should thank you for that also. And again, so I would like to thank all the participants. And the link for the feedback form has been given in the chat box, and you will also get the link in the WhatsApp group. Now I would like to formally thank the governing body of the college for encouraging us to organize this kind of webinars. I would like to thank our principal, Dr. Ramesh, Vice Principal, Dr. Ramesh Kaur, for facilitating this webinar and being with us for so long. And once again, I would like to thank both Professor Sanjay Bharadwaj and Professor A.M. Ashraf Ali for being with us. And I would like to thank all the participants and the students of the Department of Political Science. I would like to thank Dr. Shadhunath Kundu, the coordinator of IQAC cell. With this, today we are ending our webinar, and hope, sir, we will meet soon once the COVID situation
Thank you,
ends.
Professor Ashraf Ali as well, and thank you, Devantu. We will meet Dhaka. I am very regular, frequent visitor to Dhaka. I'll come next time to meet you as well.
Okay.
Thanks to all of you as well. It was
Okay.
wonderful to join you and be part of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so with this, we are ending. Thank you all.
Take care.